We have Kara Goldstein. Kara Goldstein is a cartoonist, illustrator, and educator with an MFA in poetry and minor in animation. She's a Fulbright Scholar and a Yale University National Teacher Fellow, where she created curriculum on poetry, comics, and intermediality. Her mentor was Disney's creator of Captain Hook and Peter Pan, Al Barrett. She's been honored to teach workshops at the Getty Museum, SF Arts Institute, and Alternative Press Comics Expo. She is excited to have her comic premiere in the SF Examiner this month.
All right, so during the pandemic, I was pretty much isolating by myself with my friend Sharon over here, and I was kind of going through a rough time. So I was getting flashbacks of memories of my past. And so this is a preface about when I moved to San Francisco in 2002. The type is super small, so maybe squinting. There is comics and illustrations that are paired with the images, but we weren't able to get this connected today. But I do have like a little slideshow, so I could maybe flip through it, like turn the computer on later. So when I moved to San Francisco in 2002, I was heartbroken, not just from a woman who broke me, but from the Twin Towers flames and all the hate and fear that had been sewn into the fabric of life around me. My own personal explosion of anxiety started when I started to see the National Guard at Penn Station. They had machine guns, and I was on my way to making displays in Brooklyn. I was facing the death of what I knew America to be and the end of my college years. When I arrived in San Francisco, I stayed with friends in their one-bedroom apartment in a Castro. We were on top of the American Boy store, and I slept in a long, narrow hallway with a mouse. My roommate was a chef, a drunk chef, and he used to fall on top of me in the middle of the night as he got home. My friends worked at a bookstore, an art store, and art television access. We didn't have much money, but we had rainbows and dance parties and beer. And after Christmas, my roommates wanted a tree, but we couldn't afford one, so they got one off the street. And a homeless guy who lived downstairs outside of our place helped bring the tree up. The only room that was big enough was the bathroom. So we had a Christmas tree, basically after New Year's, in the bathroom. The Mission District offered me cheap burritos, so big they were 3 meals a day. I got food samples at the mall for lunch, and I dated older women who took me out to nice dinners. As hard as it was freedom. It was waking up and getting lost in streets with colorful streetcars screeching. It was gay boys grabbing me at dance clubs to steal a kiss, knowing that I was a lesbian. It was bookstores so gay that you forgot that straight people even existed. It was losing time altogether and being in awe of all these cute candy-colored buildings. The city was alive, and there certainly weren't any men with machine guns on my way to work, at least not until I got a job later at the Jewish elementary school. This is a story of how San Francisco began to heal my New York wounds. I could be in a bar surrounded by lesbians dancing on pool tables. I could be in the middle of a pride parade with people cheering, in a cafe filled with gay poets telling my own story. The city had karaoke, cardboard building parties, lesbian burlesque shows, free hamburgers at happy hours, and every type of lesbian you could imagine. I met friends who saved me, not from the city, but from myself. Lovers would find me at board game nights, waiting online for the theater, and sometimes on the train. Glances were everything. They brought me to conversations leading to new apartments. They brought me to parties leading to kisses. A woman found me a job at UCSF after deciding we were incompatible as roommates. Every day was a scavenger hunt to find myself, so I stayed. Choosing the architecture of the places I lived was like meeting the bodies of the women I loved, quietly wondering how I would fit inside of their ways folding myself smaller, or meeting them where they met me, comfortably entangled. I searched for all the apartments I'd ever lived so I could draw them all. I never thought this project would mean finishing lingering conversations with past lovers from 2005, or receiving video footage of a raging house party in 1998. And I found myself contending with the remnants of memories and not knowing what year it is today. So I spent one weekend in 1997 New York, and the next in 2009 San Francisco, and the dates I sent my art are all over the place. But it was nice to spend quarantine visiting old houses, first dates, and the times I felt the most heartbroken. So that's the preface. I don't know if you can see some of this, but basically this is my hometown. And maybe I should just walk around to the other side, kind of scroll through. Are you able to see the screen?
Can you like lift it up a little bit?
Yeah. So this is my hometown of Amityville, New York. It is where the Amityville Horror House is. We had a very quaint and beautiful town center. So this is the town center. And it kind of goes through the story of my family being the only Jewish people in town, and just kind of feeling like this town is really normal, but we're not normal, and I'm gay, and I'm holding it in for a really long time. So the place I felt the most like at home was the pool, and I basically had to still hide I was gay at the pool, but I realized winning was kind of a way to bypass shame. So I was the captain of my swim team, and this is the pool. Then I ended up at Syracuse, which the sunsets felt kind of gay. And I don't know, time check, am I almost out?
Like 5 more minutes?
Okay. So our art building looked like the Statue of Liberty. There is a building downtown on Embarcadero that kind of looks like this. So I think the architect might have done some buildings in California, but we also had some like retro diners, which were very gay and very jukeboxy and very greasy and open very late. So when we were drinking, we would go get burritos at Alto Cinco. And this was kind of along the row of the frat houses. So this was an art house. And we had a train set on the ceiling, we smoked weed, we had a giant couch, and you had to kind of interview to get into this house. So I interviewed and I got in, and we used to sit on the porch and kind of make fun of the regular frat people. And it was called the Red House. And now it's like closed because it has asbestos or something. And I worked at the bottom of Hendricks Chapel, which was a church that was super gay. And we got to take home the leftovers to the Red House. So there was like extra desserts. We'd like take them home and everyone would eat them. And then I slept with my roommate's best friend. So in the morning, that was sort of awkward. This was the house that was in. Then they used to take us out to Stone Quarry Sculpture Park, which was like in the middle of nowhere, and there were like these interactive sculptures. So this is what that looked like. Junior year, I went to study in Italy, and this kind of describes the kiss that I gave my first love, and we felt like pieces of us had to stay, pieces of us had to go. It was like emotional torture to leave Italy. And this was us at a gay dance club, which wasn't totally gay, but there was some gay people there, so it was kind of gay. And men would approach, and I'd be like, that is my girlfriend. There was a lot of communication issues, like, no, we're not gonna change for you. This was in Spain on the way to Picasso's house. Apparently my friend fell asleep at the wheel in the middle of the night. We almost died, but I didn't find out until later. But we found this like abandoned house that we were hanging out in. This was the first love, and just how torturous it was to know that you love somebody that much. Even though you're with them, you're still tortured. This was the Art Deco building. That was the Tower building in Syracuse. They also held a summer concert, so they charged us a shit ton for like electric, but then they gave us this nice jazz concert to kind of smooth it over. This was the first lesbian bookstore I ever entered, and my whole like premise was like, I want to read books on how to make out, but I don't want people to see me reading these books, so I'm gonna like put that book inside like a better book, like a kind of easier book, and kind of run out and not buy anything. This was the puppet theater I worked at, and my girlfriend and I, we would go into the basement and make these giant puppets and kind of hide that we were dating, which I don't know if we were hiding it that well. This was the ice cream kind of place on the side of the road, and I used to go with my friends who were video DJs, and so they would like kind of video DJ the night before, and then we kind of like go to ice cream the next day to like celebrate. And this is when I landed in New York. So this is like pre 9/11, right before 9/11, and I was making giant displays for Christmas. So I was making giant candy canes in a shop in Brooklyn in Park Slope. So this is the train station in Park Slope. And I ended up in Connecticut at an opera house during 9/11. So I was painting a theater set, and we saw it on the TV. Basically the planes going into the towers, and it looked fake. So a lot of us didn't believe that it was actually the truth. We thought the TV got hijacked. They were basically just like, keep painting. We have to make the show go on, which is a very strange thing when you're in the middle of Connecticut and we don't know what the hell's going on. And the paint also smelled terrible because they give us the old paint. It was like the junk paint, and it just smelled rancid. And I was like painting with this rancid paint. And then they took us on a ferry boat ride to kind of smooth it over. Yeah. So I ended up at Goth Coffee. So I went back to Long Island, checked in with my family, and then we went to this like place called the Witch's Brew, which is like the Goth coffee house. Like old, like velvet couches and stuff like that. And then I finally landed in San Francisco. So this is the San Francisco, this is the Castro flyer. And they made Ashbury to me look like Candyland. So every time I saw one of these houses and they were painted this way, because New York was not painted this way, I felt like I was in like Rainbow Bright's fantasy world, and that was a nice escape. I also was a manager at the Red Victorian bed and breakfast. I lived in a maid's closet. I had free meals, which was amazing. I ended up leaving because there was a drug overdose. So a guy just takes a bunch of PCP, knocked on my door. It was very scary. So I ended up quitting that job. And then eventually I met another woman, like 5 years went by. And this was the house we were in Cole Valley. And then it goes to the Haight-Ashbury, where I had a French roommate who was amazing and smoked a ton of cigarettes. We ate a lot of cheese, drank a lot of wine. Just the classic stuff you would do with the French roommate. And then I moved around the corner in Massachusetts next to Emily Dickinson's house. And that was an amazing adventure as well. So like every house I lived in had beautiful architecture. For whatever reason, I just like ended up at some picturesque house. I never really knew how I got there, but it always was like this amazing container for life. And I'm gonna end on San Francisco. I'm gonna end on the GLBT, outside the GLBT building. So this one says, "Dear San Francisco, for as many times you've broken my heart, you've also healed me. And I don't know where that leaves us, but I still love you." Thank you.